Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with fabulous, and I mean fabulous, concert programs that you can listen to at home. Things that you can do because no way in hell are we ever going to see them live, God forbid, but at least we have recordings. And so, for me anyway, I would frankly rather be home 9 times out of 10, at least if the repertoire is interesting enough. And I think this is. We're up to number 2 of our Haydn Mass cycle. That is the last 6 Haydn Masses, the great Masses as they're called, that he wrote at the end of his life for the Esterhazy Princess Marie Hermenegild, whatever her name was, for her name day. And the second one is, it's probably the most famous of them all, or one of the 2 most famous, the Mass in the Time of War. Now, why is it called the Mass in the Time of War? Well, because it was a time of war. It was written at the beginning of the French Revolutionary, Napoleonic whole contraption thing that was going on there. The war with France, that was the war. And what a mess it was. And Haydn wrote this piece. He called it the Mass in the Time of War. So again, we're talking about Haydn's invention, as I mentioned in the first of this particular series, Haydn's invention of the concert Mass, of a Mass that is not so much a transcendental statement of eternal kind of anonymous, you know what I mean. Instead, it's not just the text that matters. It's the text in a particular time, in a particular place, and in a way that is responsive to human needs and humanity. I mean, they're humanistic masses. They see the text of the Mass from the point of view of a spiritual believer, but the needs of humankind, of God giving this text to humanity for their redemption, for their solace, and humanity responding to what the text represents in the circumstances in which it's being written. All of that was rather new. It really was. And again, Haydn was just one of those composers who evolved throughout his entire life, even from one work to the next. And the late Masses are no exception. They are a new kind of liturgical music, which gets no credit because people only focus on how liturgical it is, rather than how musically wonderful it really is. So the Mass in the Time of War is the feature work. The war part comes in mostly in the Agnus Dei, the very end of the Mass, where the timpani repeat a menacing rhythm, which happens to be the same rhythm as the Fate rhythm in Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum. The menace of war with trumpets and drums until the Dona Nobis, Pacem, Give Us Peace, breaks out with almost militant enthusiasm. But that Agnus Dei is a scary movement. It's spooky, it's menacing, it's Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world, have mercy on us because of what's going on. And of course, Beethoven ripped off this entire concept in the Agnus Dei of the Missa Solemnis. It's a transparent kind of crib. I would call it a homage from Beethoven to his teacher, because as Beethoven got older, he got less jealous of Haydn, and he became more, I would say, sympathetic to what Haydn was about, and more like Haydn himself in terms of his own evolution and his musical quest, as it was. So the Missa Solemnis Agnus is a genuine tribute to the Agnus Dei in the Mass in the Time of War. So that is the feature work, and it's on the second half of the program, after the intermission. Before the intermission, I've got a couple real nifty novelties that would grace any choral concert. First, Martinu's Field Mass. Well, What is the field mass? The field mass is another mass in the time of war, but it's not a setting of the mass text. It's actually a setting of psalms and biblical texts that Martinu put together based on poetry by a Czech colleague of his. He wrote it during the Second World War. It was designed to honor Czech volunteers fighting in France during the Second World War. And it is a military piece. It's for male chorus only. It's scored for percussion and wind ensemble with a piano and a harmonium and all kinds of interesting instruments. Really kind of cool stuff. It's only about 25 minutes long. It is marvelous and as good as unknown. And I think it works marvelously on a program which features a mass in the time of war, because this is another one. And a very powerful and beautiful work it is. So we start off with the Field Mass by Martinu. We continue with Holst, the Hymn of Jesus, one of the amazingly great 20th century choral works that nobody ever gets a chance to do. I mean, nobody does it because it's short. It's 20 minutes long, and it requires a big chorus and a little chorus, and it's logistically a little bit complicated. But if you're going to do the Haydn Mass, when you've got an orchestra, and you've got an organ, and you've got all of those things together, and the Martinu, which has a harmonium, which you could play on an organ if you want, or just use a harmonium, you could do the Hymn of Jesus as well. Now, the Hymn of Jesus has something military about it also. It has the Gregorian chant, Vexilla Regis. Yeah, the marching king thing. I mean, you know your Latin. I don't. All I know is that is also a militant tune, a militant chant tune. The piece itself is just, just magnificently transcendental and spacey and totally amazing in its use of choral sonority and texture. It's completely fabulous. But they all fit together. They fit together in the most beautiful kind of way. They really do. And so here is a program of what you might call wartime, military, marchy choral music. Sacred choral music. Kind of nifty, huh? I think it's really cool. I think it would just be an amazing program. You can play it at home, and you'll see exactly what I had in mind. And I think this is just one of those choral music programs. I hope someone who has like a choral society and an orchestra. And, oh, what am I kidding? Is anybody listening who could actually do it? Probably not. Let's do it for ourselves and enjoy it. Enjoy it in the privacy of our own listening space. So keep on listening, friends. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care.